and it was for the longest time my choice for my first adventure bike and first big bike. But unfortunately, KTM Philippines never got back to me about a test ride after repeated tries, so we don't talk about them here.
Well, that's about to change because here we are. Yep, today is the day we're finally gonna get to try this motorcycle.
Here we are at the home of Team Orange. These are the key specs, and it's a price increase. It's now 338,000, used to be just over 300,000. That's the KTM 390 Adventure. KTM 390 Adventure, ready for this weekend.
Not gonna lie, I am really excited to finally try this bike.
And I've just spent Friday to Sunday riding this motorcycle alongside my girlfriend, BB Moto. If you want to watch that full adventure vlog, just click the link above or in the description and first comment. I've been waiting to ride this bike since I first learned to ride in 2020. I was obsessing over it, and I was sure that it was the only big bike for me. But now that I've finally ridden it, I'm not gonna lie, it's not what I expected. What did I expect? Well, I thought this would be the perfect in-betweener bike between the Himalayan and the CB500X, with electronics that both of them lack added on top. And on paper, that's what it would seem like, right? And many of us watching these reviews, who can't test ride these bikes, only have that to work with when we make our choices. Hopefully some of the things you'll hear here are things you haven't heard in any other review.
Now, to give context about why this comparison matters, the 390 Adventure, the Royal Enfield Himalayan, and the Honda CB500X are the main options for your entry-level, highway-legal ADV below the ₱500,000 or $10,000 mark in the Philippines. Here in the Philippines, the 390 Adventure has always been only a little bit more expensive than the Himalayan. It goes now for 338,000 pesos, which is about $6,500 or 4.9 lakh rupees, with Himalayan cheaper by only 14,000 pesos. That's $270. For that price, you get a European bike made in Asia. And this one is in fact made in the Philippines along with all the 390s and 790s. The 2022 CB500X costs 50,000 pesos more than the 390. That's about $1,000 or 73,000 rupees. What I've discovered is that the KTM 390 Adventure has a distinct personality among the bikes in its class.
And this is the long story short of it. Unlike the Himalayan, which is like this relaxed, hefty pack animal, go-anywhere tractor thing, or the CB500X, which is a smooth, comfy, long-distance tourer like, a Toyota RAV4, the 390 Adventure is essentially a 390 Duke in a touring disguise. It's still that hyperactive little kid on a sugar rush, as my friend Martin calls it, that just wants to play and be flicked and be ridden hard.
There's a reason the first thing you see when you turn on this bike is ready to race. It's so peppy and unbelievably light for a big bike. For the most playful beginner ADV that flicks effortlessly through the twisties and feels faster than it actually is, the KTM would be my choice if you can live with its quirks. My riding buddy Martin made his bones riding a 390 Duke, riding it hard in many places where a Duke doesn't belong, as you'll see in a number of my vlogs. And he tried the 390 Adventure and loved it. The 390 Adventure is essentially the 390 Duke Comfort Edition. Still a road bike, but with friendlier power delivery, more suspension travel and ground clearance, and ADV ergos. Martin says it rides like a supermoto and rewards you the most when you ride it hard.
And that brings me to my main thesis about the 390 Adventure. I think this bike is mainly for the moderately aggressive, moderately tall, new adventure rider on a moderate budget. Or maybe someone moving up from a dual sport who can't afford one of the bigger adventure bikes just yet.
So if your riding personality and goals match that profile, you will love this bike. For a beginner, I see it as a great platform to grow that's fun and will give you the skills you need to move up to the big boys without overwhelming you with power. But for the same reason, many KTM 390 owners are likely to outgrow them as their skills and confidence increase, so it's less likely to be a forever bike if that's what you're thinking about. Now, those looking for an easygoing, classic, and rugged bike, who want the best off-road bike for novices or just need a lower seat height, you're better off on the Himalayan. The Himalayan is also, in my humble opinion, despite everything on paper that it doesn't do as well as the others, still the most endearing bike of the three I've mentioned. The CBX, on the other hand, feels like a significant upgrade over these two bikes in terms of overall bike feel and fit and finish, but it is the most road biased and kind of most robotic as well. And that's my big picture take on the KTM 390 Adventure and how it compares. Here are more things that I appreciate about the 390 Adventure. I can't emphasize enough how nice this combination of power and lightness is. It makes almost 20 more peak horsepower at more than 20 kilograms lighter than the Himalayan. To me, it feels like riding a 150cc with 400 plus cc power. That is the outstanding quality of the bike in my opinion. Acceleration is the hallmark of the 390 engines. YouTube has shown that the Duke can beat the Interceptor in a drag race, over and over. It does run out pretty quickly when you try to keep up with the big boys over long stretches, but you can get up to about 160 kilometers per hour on this. Cruising speed was about 120. I have such an easy time moving it around my garage or anywhere, which is such a relief compared to all my other big bikes. I never dropped it, but this is also going to be easy to pick up if you do. Big bike presence. That chunky tank and tall seat height make the 390 Adventure tower over small bikes and even over my Interceptor. It's strange, that disconnect between how small it feels and how big it looks, but I like it. Riding position is comfortable, wide, and commanding, giving a lot of control over this light bike. As a result of all of these, this bike is easy and even fun to ride in traffic. If you're not too short and or have enough skill, you will enjoy commuting on this. In Manila, by the time I had to bring it back, it was bringing out the hooligan in me, wanting to attack the spaces with its maneuverability and acceleration. This bike shines in the twisties. The 390 Duke is known as the corner rocket, and this bike still maintains some of that character despite the changes they made to make it more adventure touring friendly. It's a decent long distance tourer. The Himalayan is more plush, but this has more power for highway stretches and overtaking. The seat is hard, but I appreciate how wide and spacious it is. It's not as good a mile muncher as the CBX, but it's good for such a light bike. The stock Continental TKC70 tires are good rubber and confidence-inspiring on the road and on dry, reasonably packed dirt. Be warned though that because of this tread pattern, it gets pretty slippery when wet. It's fuel efficient. I got 29 kilometers per liter that included stretches of riding at over 120 kph. The electronics, the TFT screen, switchable ABS, the 6-axis IMU with the cornering ABS, the switchable traction control, taken all together, these are unheard of at this price point. That said, probably for the average beginner rider, these aren't a game changer. But if you're aggressive on and off-road and you're on a budget, you will really benefit from this. Rebound and compression adjustable front forks with a preload adjustable rear. Just like the electronics, this is a unique feature at this price point, but again, one that beginners won't be able to take full advantage of. But get your suspension tuned for your weight and riding style, and you will feel a noticeable improvement in your ride. A small thing, but I love these chunky rear grab rails. They make it easy to strap on luggage and to move the bike around. Now, the important thing I missed in this test ride is trying out how it really performs off-road. I would guess that it's between the Himalayan and the CBX in terms of beginner friendliness on the dirt, but based on what I see on YouTube, a capable rider can take on anything a typical ADVer would face with this bike. You'll just need to ride it more aggressively than the Himalayan. You'll power through instead of chugging through. For the absolute best video on how this performs off-road compared to the Himalayan in the hands of experts, check out this comparison video on Bike World.
Now, let's get into the quirks and disadvantages of this bike, which are unfortunately real.
The first quirk is seat height. Western reviewers call this bike short and accessible, but for the average Filipino rider, this 855mm or 33.6-inch seat height, combined with the bike's width, makes it intimidatingly tall. In fact, the tallest bike in its class. Anyone shorter than me, I'm 5'7", will barely be able to touch the ground with both feet. You can lower it, but I'm not a fan of that because it messes up the bike's geometry and ground clearance, which is already less than the Himalayans. The light weight does make up for it, but I guess it will still be intimidating for new riders. If it weren't so light, I'd probably have dropped it a number of times during the weekend. And even then, it made for some difficulty maneuvering the bike in tight inclined spaces, of which there were a lot during my ride. That said, the bike is also too small for the tall, experienced rider. The next thing I'm not a fan of is, to me, it feels plasticky and loose in general. So much so that even with less than 5,000 kilometers on the odometer, my girlfriend and I wondered if the bike was already really worn as demo bikes can be. In contrast, I find the simple, hefty solidness of the Himalayan more reassuring. But that's also why it is a lot heavier than the 390 Adventure. Just so you know, my Himalayan was once a demo bike as well with similar mileage, and while it had minor issues with the console backlight, it definitely felt like the fresher bike. I found the initial throttle response laggy. It takes time for the power to build up compared to the 390 Duke, which gives it to you instantly. I just felt there was a bit too big of a gap between the first twist and the arrival of the power. I was looking for the throttle response of the Svart 401, which has the same engine. It's like a refined version of the 390 Dukes, but without that lag. As many other reviewers have mentioned, you're also missing out on the easy, tractable low-down torque of the Himalayan, which makes it so easy to use off-road. You'll need to work with the clutch a lot more on this, they say. It's something you can get used to though and get around with good technique. Suspension is the stiffest of the three bikes I mentioned. I don't know if this is because it's meant to be ridden a little bit more aggressively. Along with that is the hard seat which many KTMs share. If you're expecting plushness, this is more comfy than the stiff Duke, but not a pothole muncher like the Himalayan or the CBX. Which brings us to the major talking point of KTMs, which is their alleged unreliability. Now, I don't know about long-term reliability firsthand before any of you tell me that I'm just sharing stories again. But I can tell you that on this bike, the horn was busted from the beginning, right when I got it. I also experienced two well-known problems with the 390 Adventure in just 3 days. First, stalling at high speed when you pull in the clutch. It happened about 3 times over the course of 2 days and 500 kilometers. And then I had one random ECU failure message while just stopped at a traffic light. No idea why, which I easily resolved by turning the bike on and off. So the question is, just how common are these in reality compared to other bikes that other people don't talk about as much because they don't have that reputation? So that's where more research on forums and Facebook groups is needed if you're going to own this bike. Talk to long-term 390 Adventure owners and really see what the truth is. On YouTube, there's just few long-term reviews in English. And this video by ADV Matt is the best, most honest one I've found so far. It's a 15,000 mile, 24,000 kilometer review with a lot of insights. Bottom line, there are issues, but none that ever left him stranded. Then there's this 10,000 kilometer review by MVDBR Enduro from a lady rider who happens to be 5'3". As I said before,
If you're gonna own a bike for pleasure, you may as well get the one you really want.
if the KTM 390 Adventure is that bike, then do your research on these issues and prepare to handle them. Get a better chain right away and get the firmware updated at the dealer. Get to know the bike inside out and maintain it religiously earlier than recommended. Know what you're getting into, and you probably have a fair chance of being a happy 390 Adventure owner.
In the end, I tried to imagine what it would have been like if I'd gone with the 390 Adventure over the Himalayan as my first big bike. Maybe I'd still have it, because it's a lot of fun. Maybe my riding style would have become more aggressive, maybe I'd even be a better rider, and maybe I'd have grown more in scale because of just how this bike eggs you on to push it, to ride it hard. Maybe I'd also be spending extra money and a lot of time trying to work around its foibles.
Now I have to address that many people argue that the Himalayan's main advantage over the 390 Adventure is marketing, especially in markets where their price is close, like here in the Philippines. And sure, there is truth to that. But, though I know many will disagree, I will still argue that the Himalayan's advantages, aside from off-road, have to do with that elusive character. So, test ride both bikes, and you'll see what I mean. One will definitely speak to you more.
And that is it for my long time coming review of the KTM 390 Adventure. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to KTM Philippines for trusting me with your motorcycle, even though I threw some real shade at you in my previous video. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll like, subscribe, and stay notified for more reviews, motovlogs, and the rest of my adventures. Peace out.